they've done cross-cultural studies, for example, where you look at like stereotypes of masculinity or femininity, and you ask all these different cultures, what they tend to seek in a potential mate. And we find that they basically hold up that men are looking for, women who are young and beautiful, implying the role of the mother. Women are looking for men who are, strong and ambitious and of resources, implying the role of the protector and the provider. So while it is true that, yes, your need to be protected by a man is much lesser than it would have been, 100 years ago, I think that biological impulse is still there, which is why we see it across cultures. And so the question becomes, how much is our society going to undo that biological impulse to seek that with how women are regarded?
Can I find on that real quick? Okay. When we cite, first of all, the marriage thing is a really good thing, right? If we say 60% of relationships end in infidelity, right? I know they didn't say that, but let's say 60% of relationships end in infidelity. Why did the relationship end? To say cheating, Lauren mentioned, doesn't really get to the heart of what happened, right? Because it's possible that like by the time cheating has happened, it's because the relationship has already fallen apart, right? Like here, I haven't seen data on this, but I would bet my life on this, that you can probably track the success of a relationship based on how much sex the man and the woman have. However, would you say that like, we had sex like once every 3 months, that's why the relationship ended? Probably not. You probably stopped having sex because other issues were starting to crop up to make it happen. We take these numbers sometimes, and if you want to talk about a study, I think it's important to talk about the entirety of a study and not to pull numbers, because I'm familiar with Michael Sartain, I think, and Rollo cite these numbers all the time, that these cross-cultural things, they do this polling data, they see what people want. Just because people find a certain thing attractive doesn't necessarily mean that's what they chase. For instance, here's a data point. Here are two different data points that almost seem to contradict each other. One is that I think that for men, I think the ideal age of like female beauty, depending on what you're looking at, is anywhere from like 18 to 24, depending on what study you're looking at. But if you look at the average difference of the age of a relationship, it's like 2.7 years, I think. So even though men in general might say like, oh my God, like I really like young women that are like 22, on average, the choices that you're making in life aren't going to 100% map onto the thing that you find attractive. Same thing with women. Women might say that I prefer men that are, 6 feet tall and blah, blah, blah. And these are like your dream preferences. But when it actually comes to settling down in a relationship, they're not picking like the optimal things that they fantasize. They're making more realistic choices. And I think it's important to contextualize numbers when we talk about things like that.
In fact, I think one of the red pill dating talking points is that young women, and I'm not saying I agree with it. This is one thing they say. That young women will rack up a high body count at a young age. And then once they're in their 30s, think, oh, I need a stable guy who's actually going to be there for me. And they end up settling down with a guy who's like an average dude with a good job.
It's true. Mm-hmm. Many such cases. And I think there is something to be said that while, what you desire is not what you're always going to be able to get, that impulse is still there. So you can be a very beautiful young woman, desire that guy, and maybe get him, maybe choose to exploit your beauty for other purposes and then settle down later. But settling doesn't mean you decide that this is unrealistic just because it's like unobtainable. It's more because, well, what am I working with? What can I bring to the table to get that? Because a guy in that position is well aware of that desirability. And so he can leverage that to, get a woman who's more in alignment with what he finds desirable. So I don't think it's necessarily like, I wish I could fly, but I can't. It's like, this does exist, but I can't get it for whatever reason.
Well, I find looking at the red pill community versus, for example, some of the extreme whatever women, like the podcasts, that is, there's a big stark contrast between red pillers who might say, oh, well, no woman is going to want someone who's under 6 foot tall, which is absolutely not true. I mean, people on the internet act as if no one who's 5'10" has ever gotten married as a man, which is absolutely not the case. And then, on the other side of things, you might also have a extreme feminist who's saying, oh, well, women can do whatever they want. Men should not care about body count because it doesn't matter, which is also not true. People have preferences, obviously, but we're working within the fact that we have to deal with real people who are imperfect. So I think anytime we're looking at these polls, people online can be really, I don't want to say autistic about them, but act as if they're the gospel truth. But Destiny is right. People are a lot more nuanced in their actual behavior.
Well, let me just, ask the woman who's here. Would you divorce your husband if he got beat up in front of you?
No.
Are you lying?
No. I mean, my husband does do BJJ, and he's a pretty big guy. But
see, there you go.
No.
She can't even conceive of the possibility because he's already taken into account that because he agrees. He knows it's true, and that's why he trains BJJ.
Well, I think there would be something inherently emasculating about seeing your husband get beaten up in front of you, aside from the fact that he's your husband and you love him and you're worried about him getting beaten up. But obviously, no, most women aren't looking for someone who is literally who was Game of Thrones, Jason Momoa, Khal Drogo. They're not looking for that extreme example of masculinity, but there's something inherent in women where they're looking at a man and I think the lizard brain is asking, could he physically protect me? They like men who are strong, who have muscles, who are taller. I think that's there for a reason. It's because of the physical prowess.
I think when I think of like masculine and feminine traits, I think that they're important. But I think that people to have a more realistic view of how they influence people. I think these are things that exist as the edges. They're like the spice that you can add to a relationship. So like if you find, I'll say from the male perspective, you find a woman that's like really stable, maybe she works like a decent job if you care about that, you have a fun time, you've got a lot of chemistry together. Like these are like the really important things. You have a similar communication style. These are the really important things. Now, if she also happens to have a great butt, big boobs, she's short, whatever the fuck, she's blonde or whatever you're into, that's like a cool bonus. And I think it's similar for women too. Like if you find a guy and he can provide for you, he's got a good job, really stable, good relationship with his parents, likes kids, all this stuff, that's cool. If he's also like 6 feet tall, if he's also like super muscular, those are like cool bonuses. But I don't think people are usually deciding relationships on those like side factors unless they're really, really, really young. Like a 20-year-old dude might be like, I'm dating that girl because she's got huge tits and I don't care that she has BPD and she slashed her last boyfriend's tires. Or the girl that's like, I'm dating this guy, he's so fucking hot. I know he's got a lot of tattoos and he just got out of prison like 2 years ago, but I'm doing it. You know, like if you're really young, you make stupid decisions like that. But in general, these are like bonuses, not like the deciding factors.
I was reading this analysis from a dating website, a dating app, and they broke down level of attraction by age. And the interesting thing was, I shouldn't say interesting, the creepy thing is that men, they actually, when shown pictures of women, overwhelmingly choose underage women. Like disgustingly.
I've seen as low as 16 sometimes.
Exactly.
For what it gravitates towards, yeah.
And this is, you wouldn't be, this is why it's not surprising to learn that the models you see in a lot of ads, when you go to the mall and you'll see like women, they're like 15 and 16 years old. Creepy stuff. However, when actually introduced or asked about women of that age, men overwhelmingly say no, because I mean, like, what adult wants to hang out with a child? It's just, so what ends up happening is, according to this one dating app's bit of data, I think it was OkCupid, they said men overwhelmingly want 22-year-old women because they're adult in mind and young and attractive. So while the industry may pursue these younger women, typically like 17 or 18, still too young in my opinion, men are overwhelmingly like, yeah, okay, that 18-year-old girl might be attractive or whatever, but who wants to spend their time with someone who's inexperienced and not capable of, navigating the world? But 22 does tend to be the number for guys across the board. I think it was OkCupid that showed this data where no matter how old a man is, he's liking and messaging 22-year-olds.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how old a woman is, she's trying to date within her age range, like a comparable age.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what he mentioned is true as far as like people getting more realistic with their dating standards. But I wonder how much of that is just because as you get older, you yourself, whether you're a male or a female, accumulate more baggage, past relationships, crazy exes. As you get into your like 30s or 40s, if you're still dating, you can't exactly go into it, I don't think, with the same sort of like optimism and blank slate, so to speak, that you might have been able to when you were 20. You're also far less mature when you're in your, early 20s. So yeah, you're going to want to pursue the girl with BPD who's going to slash your tires. There's something fun about that. It's a stepping stone. But yes, as you get older, you do kind of have to get more realistic about, I think, the world around you. But I don't think that negates sort of like the core of what makes people attracted to each other in terms of like the, the masculine or the feminine side.
I was gonna say, I agree with that core, but it's what everybody talks about. It would be like having a discussion of like what is the best car to take to the track, and 95% of the discussion is around like the spoiler or the seats. It's like, yeah, some aspects of these could matter for comfort or luxury, or maybe even for aerodynamics or whatever, but like the main thrust, and this is my thesis in the beginning, the thing that I hate is that you've got obviously progressives and left-leaning people don't want to talk to men because they're all rapists, but the people on the right that give the advice, it's all focused on this very niche hyper-masculine thing that, one, the vast majority of men will never get to. Most men aren't going to earn six figures, let alone be the millionaires, let alone have the 50-woman body count by the time you're 35, or get the vasectomy when you're 20, whatever all these other replicas guys say. Most of them aren't even going to hit that point. And then secondly, in terms of how people can improve themselves for relationships, I don't think in general the complaint is like, God, there's just not enough like ultra masculine men. I think usually the breakdowns are more along the lines of like, these guys suck at communicating, they don't have very good like socialization skills, we don't have very good chemistry, we don't know how to conduct themselves properly in public, maybe can't do anything in a house, like doesn't know how to do laundry, clean, or even make macaroni and cheese or make their bed. Like, I think that these are the things that kind of need a lot of focus. As cringe as it is, I used to make fun of him a lot because I didn't think that a lot of men had this problem. I honestly think Jordan Peterson's advice of like make your bed and take care of your own shit before you go into the world is way more important than like you got to hit the gym because you never know when 17 assailants are going to hop out in an alley and try and stab to death you and steal your woman, you know?
Yes, but hitting the gym is in line outside
That is
of that
improving yourself.
weird, like the idea that you're going to hit the gym to become strong to fight is silly. But the idea that you hit the gym for yourself,
Self-improvement is good. Yeah, true.
right?
I agree,
Cleaning
yeah.
your room.